Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to dive into a topic that literally reshapes how we understand our own daily, or actually, scratch that, our own nightly routines. So think about it. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're probably going to walk into a room, effortlessly flip a switch on the wall, and boom, light instantly floods your space. You won't even think twice about it, right? It's entirely second nature to us. But the reality is that effortless modern light switch is a incredibly recent luxury. Today, we're going to explore the terrifying, total darkness our ancestors faced every single night and uncover the completely fascinating things they actually did in that dark, especially when it came to sharing their stories. To truly wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the massive scale of human history. For 99.9% of our existence, we're talking over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors spent roughly half of their entire lives in near total darkness. When the sun set, the world just went black. You couldn't even see your own hand in front of your face. And keep in mind, they didn't even have the simple invention of the candle for the vast majority of that time. It was just the pitch black sky, the stars, and whatever small fire they could manage to keep alive. So going from that pitch black, ancient sky to our brightly illuminated modern nights is about so much more than just convenience. Our eventual conquest of that darkness didn't just make things easier to see, it fundamentally altered our species. It completely rewired our biological programming, our cultures, and, as you'll see, it profoundly changed human consciousness itself. We literally became who we are today because of how we handled the dark. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. Our conquest of the dark began roughly 1 million years ago at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. This gives us the earliest solid evidence of humans actually controlling fire. Before this moment, our primitive ancestors were kind of just like every other primate out there. When the sun went down, you climbed up into a tree or you found a highly sheltered spot and you stayed absolutely still. Because if you moved at night with your terrible night vision, you immediately became prey for leopards, hyenas, and wolves. No way around it. But then, a simple campfire instantly creates a 30-foot circle of safety. It's a small radius, sure, but it changed the equation overnight. Inside that 30-foot diameter, the predators wouldn't come. But if you wandered outside of it, you died. And this isn't just some ancient history exaggeration either. Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer groups document that people who wander away from the fire at night are still significantly more likely to be killed by predators today. So the absolutely crucial point here is that fire didn't just provide warmth or safety, it gave early humans something they had never possessed before, and that is extra time. Before fire, the useful, productive day abruptly ended right at sunset. But the true gift of fire was that it suddenly added 2 to 4 extra usable hours to every single day. That restructuring of the human timeline over thousands of generations completely changed our evolutionary trajectory. Section 1. The original theater, birth of culture. Now, what's really fascinating here is what we did with that extra time. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Weisner studied the Juhwansi Bushmen. They're a group living remarkably close to our original human ancestors, and she wanted to see what happened when the sun went down. During the day, about 80% of their talk was strictly practical logistics. Who was hunting where, which plants are ready. It was all work and economic negotiation. But around the nighttime campfire, 81% of their conversations completely transformed into stories, myths, and jokes. We are talking about vivid tales of distant places, myths about the world's origins, and humor that made the whole camp laugh. Weisner really hit the nail on the head here. She argued that the campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, and the original church. This campfire storytelling was the literal birthplace of human culture. Those 2 to 4 extra hours of firelight were the exact environment where humans first learned to stretch their imaginations, to think beyond the immediate present, and to envision things that didn't even exist yet. The very act of telling stories in the dark is what made us distinctly human. Moving on to our next section, the forgotten rhythm. So, historian Roger E. Kirch spent 16 years digging through records and made a discovery that absolutely revolutionized sleep science. Before the industrial age, people did not sleep in one continuous 8-hour block like we try to do today. No, they experienced biphasic sleep. This was a first sleep of about 4 hours, followed by 1 to 2 hours of quiet wakefulness, and then a second sleep until dawn. Kirch found this pattern documented over 500 times everywhere, from 1400s prayer books to medical texts, right back to passages in Homer's Odyssey. And Well, this brilliantly illustrates that it wasn't just some cultural trend. It was hardwired into our biology. Back in 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran this wild experiment where volunteers were plunged into 14 hours of darkness every single night for a month, perfectly mimicking our ancestors' environment before artificial light. Without any prompting, within weeks, every single participant naturally reverted exactly to this ancient biphasic sleep pattern: 4 hours of sleep, a couple of hours awake, 4 hours asleep. It was like an ancient software program buried inside them, just booted right back up. So, what did people actually do during that midnight watch between sleeps? A 16th century French physician actually recommended this window for conceiving children. People would quietly visit neighbors, or, crucially for our storytelling focus, interpret their dreams while they were still vividly fresh in their minds. Dr. Manuels from the 1500s advised that this was the best time for deep study and reflection. And modern science totally backs this up. Ware found that during this wakeful period, the brain produces elevated levels of prolactin, which creates this peaceful, meditative state of consciousness that most modern humans have entirely lost. Which brings us to our final section, the murder of the night. We essentially murdered the night, entirely wiping out hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary behavior. But why? Well, because for most of history, the night was something to be deeply feared. Just look at the word curfew. It literally comes from the medieval French couvre-feu, meaning to cover or extinguish your fire. A bell would ring, signaling it was time for darkness. Being outside dark without a lantern in many medieval European cities was actually illegal. The night belonged to criminals and the supernatural. Humans feared the dark immensely, and so, naturally, we sought to conquer it. Let's move to the timeline and see how this rapidly builds. Our desire to conquer that fear sparked a huge technological march. In the 1600s, Paris, under Louis XIV, installed street lamps to reduce crime. The terrifying night slowly became manageable. Then came cheaper candles, followed by gas lamps in the 1800s. And finally, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. Within just a single generation, the total enveloping darkness that humans had known for 300,000 years was completely eradicated from our daily lives. We flooded the night with light, and we called it progress. But here is the massive cost of that progress. Today, modern humans face an average of 7 to 8 hours of artificial light, especially that harsh blue light from our countless screens, long after the sun has set. Because your body cannot tell the difference between a light bulb and the actual sun, when that light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain thinks it's still daytime. It suppresses and delays your melatonin production, fragments your sleep, and entirely throws off the circadian rhythm that took millions of years to evolve. But there is a really cool glimmer of hope hidden in our biology. Researchers have found that if you take people completely away from artificial light, say by going out and camping for just one single week, their bodies rapidly remember. With zero artificial light, 300,000 years of programming reasserts itself. Within a week, their melatonin cycles naturally reset by nearly 2 hours, beginning production right at sunset, exactly as nature originally intended. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider. We often treat waking up in the middle of the night as a medical problem, as insomnia. But what if lying awake in the dark at 2 a.m. isn't a malfunction at all? What if it's simply your body trying to remember what it was built to do? For thousands of generations, we used the deep night to reflect, to meditate, and to tell the grand stories that built human civilization. We traded the Milky Way, that quiet reflection, and the birth of storytelling for the simple convenience of a light switch. And until very recently, most of us never even knew what we had lost.